I'm Erica Hollingsworth, and you're listening to the F1 podcast.
Good evening, everyone. It is Ricci here from the F1 podcast. Happy Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Recording this a couple of days after the Italian Grand Prix, where Ferrari and Charles Leclerc enjoyed the glory of winning at their home track. I'm here with Andrew and Erica. Hope y'all are doing amazing. How are you guys doing today?
Living the dream after the Labor Day weekend. Woo!
Yeah, I was at a wedding on Friday and I thought it was a great idea to wear a three-piece suit. It was like 32 degrees out. That three-piece came down to two in about 20 minutes. I was like,
Um, yeah, I think also really important is students are going back to school, whether if it's in elementary, high school, and post-secondary. Don't know about you, but I'm getting all of our notifications of us at orientation week again. That is a nice little throwback for us. Must have been what, 7, 8 years ago?
doesn't look
Yeah, the
as fun
last
as it
one.
used to be, but maybe just because we're not in it.
You know what? The kids just don't do it the same way we used to do it, you know?
No.
My parents said that to me. I'm gonna say that to the next generation as well. We all like to think we went up, you know?
Do a barrel roll.
Let's start it off. Where do we want to start with the Italian Grand Prix?
Well, let's just say one of the first things that stood out is once again, Lando could not hold on to the lead on the first
You
lap of a
lose.
race. But in a different fashion, this wasn't someone on another team overtaking him. It wasn't Max Verstappen. It was his teammate Oscar Piastri, who jockeyed for position and ended up finishing lap one in the lead. And I think giving just about everyone on the McLaren pit wall a little bit of a heart attack there to kick off Monza.
I don't know about you. If I'm Lando Norris, I am fucking fuming right now with McLaren. What I He selfishly gave back position to Oscar in Hungary, right? And when he was about 6, 7 seconds up the road and he held back to like give him back the lead for Oscar's first win. And when you're only like 70 points behind your rival, who, let's face it, they're not going to win another race this season with the car that they have currently. You need to make up as many points as you can on the ground as fast as possible because you don't want to be going into Abu Dhabi a couple points behind having to win the race on a couple weekends because we know Max can take that, quote unquote undrivable monster to positions that it shouldn't be, right? So it was really interesting to watch the dive bomb going into the first chicane for Oscar. Made him really pull off the move,
Do
but
a barrel
it got
roll.
to a point where Oscar wasn't going to beat the one-stop strategy that Ferrari worked to perfection. And at that point, you have to make a judgment call that's best for the team. And that judgment call is that you have to flip Oscar and Lando because you have a chance you're going to win the Constructors' Championship. That's over. Like that's done, dusted. Put the nail in the coffin. That's done. You have a chance to win a Drivers' Championship for your long-term driver that's been there for 5 years now, who's been dubbed the quote-unquote future of your team, and you're pulling this shit. I would be fuming if I was Lando Norris.
Yeah, like
See,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Jenna.
what I was gonna say is I think the big thing is like what is the strategy for McLaren is are we going for the constructors or are we gonna go for the drivers now? So I think that expectation needs to be put into their drivers and God forbid, I don't even know what Monday's meeting was like with those two drivers and Zach Brown, and that needs to kind of be hashed out right away. And like they should be happy with the 2 and 3. And if what is it, Max came what P6 and Sergio became P8, like they got maximum amount of points. But like uh you watch the aftermath of the photo of them celebrating with their team afterwards. It wasn't really a celebration. They look like you're going into the office on a Monday morning.
Lando is straight up like depressed sitting beside the sign there. Like one of you sent a photo in our group chat and you could see Ferrari's losing their minds. They're like breaking storage boxes. Everyone's running around. It's like the happiest day of everyone's lives, better than a kid on Christmas morning. And then it like cuts to McLaren and you see Lando beside the P3 sign. And you would think that his parents just told him that they were disappointed in him after reading his report card. And I mean, I feel like that is kind of probably what his parents are thinking after how this season has gone for him. They probably would have expected him to at least get P2, if not P1 in this race. But it was not good vibes over at the McLaren garage when it came down to the end of the race.
These dumb papaya rules.
What is the Papaya Rules?
It's
Okay,
like a multi 21 version of what McLaren's quoting in terms of fair racing. But I mean, we're at a point now in this season where you have to prioritize one driver ahead. Like, if this was like race three, sure, let them race. Papaya rules all day. I don't care. Like, have fun going against each other. But when you have a driver who's only 70 points out of the potential World Drivers' Championship, and you've hindered him by getting like closing that gap in a race earlier this season for your teammate, and then that teammate does not reciprocate, this whole "oh, you're gonna need Oscar to win the championship" BS nonsense that now is like it there's no point to that now. Like, if I'm Lando, I ain't listening to the words of the team orders whatsoever from now on.
like, and so for a recap, in case anyone missed Zach Brown's comment on the papaya rules, the simplest way he put it was papaya rules are it's your teammate. Race him hard, race him clean, don't touch. That happened. It was an aggressive pass, so that's a conversation we'll have. That was a bit nerve-wracking on pit wall, but it's really just respect your teammate. And yeah, sure, like you said earlier in the race, who cares? But I think I made a comment a few weeks ago about, they're just going for constructors championship, so it doesn't really matter which driver finishes 1-2, they want to maximize points at a team. But as you've pointed out, they are in a position where that's not really the conversation we're having anymore. We do know that this is the strongest performing team. And McLaren hasn't been in a position where they've had to have team orders like this in a long time. But we've seen it with Red Bull where they've told Sergio, hey, you're starting from P2, you're defending for Max, let Max just get off and you go from there. We saw it at Mercedes. That's why Bottas left. He was sick of being the second driver who was defending for Lewis, as Lewis was the one first off the line and kind of going through the rest of the race. And they should have made that call earlier because, quite frankly, like, I was terrified. Like, it looked like they made contact, and I was pretty sure that I was going to have both of my drivers out of the race before it even really started. And this can't continue going into the rest of the season. Like, yeah, we want fun F1, but even just having Oscar in like P2 defending so that Lando can go ahead and win is something I would like to see more. Because as much as I believe Ferrari did bring improvements to their car from before the summer break, I don't know that they brought that crazy of an increase when they won by 22 seconds the week before,
I think the big thing that really stood out for me is like, let's talk quickly about Saturday is that Oscar and Lando had really good qualifying. And as a Ferrari fan, like you kind of just said, we're just going to see how Sunday goes and just hope for the best because, we knew that the McLarens were going to be strong. And I think Charles literally said that. He's like, let's just see what happens. And when you have those instances, what is it, the turn 1 and then turn 4, and then Leclerc was able to get right through it. It just, I mean, I don't know about you guys. They need. I hate to swear, but like they need to figure this shit out as soon as possible. And you don't want a second like Baku can be a different story of how they will do in Baku, and then there's going to be some tough courses coming up. Red Bull does not do well in Singapore. I don't think they're going to do well in Baku. They need to maximize as much points as possible, but like I don't know, like you saw the Zach Brown and then Andrea Stella to like talking, and then I think what was the quote in Will Buxton's eye rolls? It's been the most common meme that's going around. He's like, we have 2 number 1 drivers, and it's just like, okay, well, we know that, but like it's a team sport. Like figure out what is your strategy at the end of the day. Go ahead, Andrew.
I don't doubt that they have 2 number 1 drivers. They do have 2 future number 1 drivers, but in the current position right now, Lando Norris is your number 1 driver because he is 60 some odd points away from Max Verstappen for making like an insurmountable comeback that we didn't even think was possible this season. And you're hindering every chance now he has to make that up. And I know there's many races left with Baku, but this hard racing, the quote unquote Papaya rules, has now opened the door where if anyone remembers Baku in 2018 when Danny Rick and Verstappen were racing
Yes.
together hard in Red Bull, and when they went down into turn 1 and Ricardo just went into the back of Verstappen, this very well now could happen in Baku, just based on the way that this has now been prefaced through these rules. So, and then if that happens, that is 0 points, and that is now an opportunity for Max to gain more space in the drivers' championship, and then make Lando's comeback even that harder. So I understand that there's two number 1 drivers in the future at McLaren, but for this season, that is not the case. Oscar needs to take the back seat to Lando, and then next season when you go through with this, yeah, then you compete with the 1-2, like we see with Rosberg and Hamilton back in the day.
It's so funny that you called out what happened in Baku a few years ago, because I was literally thinking the same thing. And especially with that being the next race, I was like, oh man, is history going to repeat itself? But my last kind of thought on this piece here, because I feel like we're all aligned in thinking the same thing. Based on the lack of team orders, or, you know, what we deem to be questionable team orders from McLaren, so forcing Lando to give back position and finish P2, that was 7 points lost. And then this week, finishing in P3, that was 10 points lost, as opposed to, you know, if they had said, hey, Piastri, you're defending there. So if I'm Lando, and at the end of this year, it comes down to looking at the World Drivers' Championship standings, and I lose out on the WDC by 17 points or something even remotely close to that, I'm so pissed. I'm going to absolutely rage. Like, some of these guys missed out on their brat summer because they were racing in cars or like being very lovely and off the grid with their girlfriends. I would just be a fucking menace to society afterward. That would be.
But then where's Lando's team backing him up behind the scenes here at McLaren, right? Because you know
Yeah.
clearly that Mark Webber is just in the
Oh,
ear
he's
constantly
pulling
of Zach Brown,
strings.
right? For Oscar. So we need Lando's team to start doing that, or he needs to just start doing it himself. You know, maybe withhold some information from Oscar in terms of car setup, right? I don't want to, it sounds a little rude and maybe a little mean, but drivers are selfish by nature, right? So he needs to be more selfish, Lando, because he is a very talented racer. He needs to understand that he can do this and that he shouldn't now let team orders affect the way he does, because he's given McLaren, you know, fool me once, shame on me with regards to the P2, like, you know, the switch of the P2, fool me twice now, shame on you. So it's time to not be fooled again.
2 races that every driver has on their calendar: their home race, where they're from, and their team home base, wherever they're from. Leclerc pulled it off this year, winning at Monaco and winning at Monza. The last time, if you guys remember, was 2019, where he had to defend against 2 Mercedes, and I think at the time it was Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. I mean, what a magnificent drive by the Monegasque. Like, it was amazing, despite of all the fighting that McLaren had to do, and, you know, risking it on a 1-stop strategy. I don't know about you guys, but I cried at the end. I literally cried with my dad. I always make sure that I watch the Italian Grand Prix with him. And I don't know about you, but that is probably the best podium, period, and in the F1 season.
And for Charles, I know there was an interview clip circling where, I mean, any driver is excited to win a home race for themselves and for the team, but to also talk about having lost his father and thinking about the races that would have meant the most to his father for him to win, and him having identified, you know, years ago, especially earlier this year, kind of thinking about where Ferrari might end up, that if he could win races, those are the 2 that would have meant the most to his dad as well. It's kind of nice to know now he's got not just podiums, but wins at both of them. And that, you know, it really proves like this is something that these people invest their whole lives in, right? Like it's about more than just, oh, I'm a professional athlete. Like, this is like a family thing to a lot of people. When they win, it's not just for themselves. It's for those people who have supported them for decades as they got to this stage. So honestly, like the photos are just insane. It's like you're at a presidential campaign event. It's not like you're at a race car track. It's
I
nuts.
think he had more people there than Trump's inauguration, to be honest with you.
People have been comparing it to some of the photos, which is truly wild. And they're like, you know, everyone was doing comparisons of various presidents over the years, but ain't nobody got nothing on Charles Leclerc winning Monza in 2024. So honestly, like we know a couple people who were there too. Like some of the Ferrari Club of Toronto were there, and just seeing they were also near the finish line, and just seeing the clips from them this weekend was absolutely insane.
I was getting a couple of text messages of some cheers. They were drinking grappa and partying like it was no tomorrow. I mean, one day I'll make it to Monza. The fact that I was 30 minutes outside in Milano, oh my gosh, it's just like the emotions were. It's like I think it was like out of something out of like a movie. Like 2019 and 2024, like were pretty much identical. And you got to think about that. And I don't think a lot of people really give credit to like Carlos Sainz, even though that his tires were not as strong or were degrading as much as Leclerc's were. But like he was able to kind of do some defending towards the end of the race, and like kind of helped. Like, you want to talk about teammates? Those are teammates right there. He knew his job. He knew what he had to do to ensure that Leclerc won. Also, like, I don't know if you've seen the data on Leclerc. Like, those tires look shot by the end of the race, but he was managing like 123 consistently, plus or minus. I think one lap he went over to 124. It's just pretty remarkable on that drive. And like, we could talk about Red Bull, we could talk about everything else, but like, just to see the joy of him winning this weekend was just like remarkable. And I don't know if you heard this, but the commentators, every time the last couple of laps were going, they had to turn up the volume of their mics, or just because of everything going on, and just all the Tifosi just screaming and yelling. I mean, you couldn't script this better. And I can't wait to see how Drive to Survive shows this.
Yeah, the whole last 10 laps, I think it was in our chat, I was saying like the crowd is electric. Like anytime they were going past a grandstand following the cars, it was just there was a piece of me that was like, I don't think Liberty Media would do this, but I was like, do they have like a laugh track or something going, like a cheer track in the background, like one of those canned things they use in movies? Because it was so consistent, but it was just everyone knowing your boy's in the lead, he's bringing home the win at the home track for the team, and that was incredibly exciting. So they're gonna have, there's been so much good material for Netflix this year, but this is gonna be particularly special for them, I think.
As Sebastian Vettel once said, everybody's a Ferrari fan, especially like when you see that type of emotion from the Tifosi, from the Ferrari team itself, right? Just like, how can you not fall in love with F1 by seeing that photo, by hearing the crowd at the last 10 laps cheering on their king, right? King Charles has made an appearance, and he's now the fourth driver in the last 30 years to win Monza and Monaco in the same season. That's a really tough feat, right? Two completely different tracks. So the fact that he's able to do both, just absolutely incredible. And it was a lot of fun to see Nico Rosberg there in the post-race interview, and how he emphasized the win at Monza, and how that was kind of a most important, he won the two most important calendars on his races on his calendar this season. And I think that alone, it should be just a significant accomplishment for Ferrari and the team.
Also, if you ever hear the post race wins with his like engineer, sorry, was his team or his radio, is just like, and just like hearing him screaming, si, grandissimo, grandissimo, grazie a tutti. Like everything was just, oh my gosh, I could not get over how beautiful that radio was. It's like when Sebastian Vettel spoke Italian, it was like perfecto, but like when you hear Leclerc speak it, it's just like a different level.
Part of me wishes there were subtitles on during that radio so that I could understand it at that point.
Kimi Antonelli made his appearance as in the Mercedes at his home being Italian at his home track, and he crashed.
I was killing myself laughing because, of course, we knew he was going to be an FP1. We knew soon after that he had signed with Mercedes for next year, where everyone's been like freaking out over that. And then to immediately crash the car and have the driver standing on the sideline watching it. You can't write a better comedic script than that.
I feel now really bad for Logan Sargent because, you see Sergio Perez crash the car a ton, keeps the seat at Red Bull. You have Kimi Antonelli crash his car and he gets,
You get
promoted
to
to being
see.
F1 driver for next season. And you have Logan Sargent crash his car. You're not on the team anymore, bud. It's so it's like, oh man. But it was we called it, Ricci, on the last podcast episode. We said that it's literally that was gonna happen, that announcement, and bub bing. So if you want your hot but correct takes, you come listen to the F1 podcast, baby.
I feel like it was like because I messaged you too because I was out for an event and they literally announced it as you were recording the episode last week. I was like, please tell me you saw this, post something about it because the timing was just too funny. Like the number of times we've made a prediction only to like immediately have the news come out afterward is kind of uncanny. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I
And
think
it's
we're
big.
omniscient.
We are, and especially about like, let's just first talk about like Logan Sargent's replacement is Franco Colapinto. Talk about, very intimidating to have your first race be at like Monza, the Temple of Speed, and for him to, didn't have the greatest of qualifying, but to go from P18 to P12 and just like only a couple seconds as his first real test in an F1 car, like hats on to you, for especially driving that car this year.
He
And
is
I,
now ahead of Valtteri Bottas in the World Drivers' Championship, which now puts Bottas at P22 in a 20-man race or season. Tough, tough, tough scenario for Valtteri.
oh, oh no.
But they found his twin in the stands. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, I gave him a VIP pass too to let him get all in up behind the scenes and stuff. Which was pretty funny. I think one of the other sad moments from this weekend, besides Bottas now being P22 in the championship, is poor Yuki Tsunoda. What does this track have against him, honestly?
I just think he hates Italy in general, to be honest with you.
20, I think it was 2021 did not start. 2020, sorry, 2022, 14th place. 2023 did not start, and then this year did not finish.
Yeah.
Man hates Italy.
Did you see the banter though between him and Ricardo at they did like a fan meetup at VCarb there, and
My Daniel and his Italiano.
and
Perfecto.
Yuki was translating. He said, I hate it here. The pizza, I like pineapple on my pizza. Just working the crowd. It was incredible.
Oh, I love the banter. The banter is what I live for between two teammates. It's good stuff.
Quote, one day Monza will love me back.
I think honestly, the real losers right now, is just Red Bull.
Oh, talk about fumbling the bag. Honestly, what?
Max Verstappen is the one, is like, he is the guy he is Atlas. He's holding up the Red Bull world right now on his back, like on his shoulders. And it's just crumbling. It's like just crumbling beneath him because his team, I think honestly, they're gobsmacked. They are perplexed right now, deer in the headlights look in terms of what's going on with their car, that they're really fumbling the bag during the race, and it's taking Max required to say, hey, I need people to be giving me data constantly, right? Because I got to maximize the points that I can do now and not get overtaken by, like, say, a Russell on P7. And just the fact that he has to remind his team to, stay in it is just shocking to me.
It is. I mean, it's one thing if the technology of the car is not keeping pace with everyone else. And Perez was saying, he's happy that some of the issues he's had with the car, like, not that it's great for Max, but hopefully now they pay more attention because it's both cars experiencing some of the stuff he was talking about. But it's the total breakdown in communication because they told him to turn off one of the components in his car to save the battery and recharge, but then just never told him to turn it back on. And a whole bunch of laps later, he had to ask them if it was okay. And they were like, oh, yeah, go ahead, turn it back on. Why is no one monitoring that on the screen? If you have the stats in front of you, and I feel like I'm almost just quoting Verstappen verbatim at this point, but if you have the stats in front of you telling you to turn the component off, you will have the stats in front of you telling you when it's time to turn it back on. And if it's something that involves giving a little bit of extra juice and power to the car, why are you not paying attention? I don't get it.
I think also, if you haven't, you should watch him when he has to do Dutch interviews. He's a little bit more blunt on his commentary than he is when he speaks English. Oh yeah,
It's the best. It is the best. He
Oh, I
literally
need to
tells
look
it
this
word
up.
for word how it is. and basically pretty much just saying that this car is just a piece of shit at this point. And and he literally said that they're not winning another race this year based on the car they have right now. And it's very clear that they're not going to win the race right now. And I think he even is, there's some a lot of doubt in the team to give him a car that will compete for the World Drivers' Championship. And I don't know if he's almost accepting that. But if, again, going back to the start, if McLaren keep fumbling the bag on strategy, he might win this by tripping him over his own feet, sort of idea.
I'm gonna scream if that happens. Because that shouldn't happen, but it might. And I hate that I'm like, yeah, it's probably gonna happen. McLaren's gonna make some weird calls and Max might win it anyway, which would just be so absurd. So absurd.
Or even this, like, Erica, like, not to put more in your head, but think about this. Like, Leclerc, this is his third podium in succession, following 2 third places. He sits 86 points behind championship leader Max Verstappen and only 24 away from Lando Norris.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that Lando might not even finish second in the championship if things keep going as poorly as they have been, or if the team keeps going Papaya Rules. Papaya. Like, Max was making fun of it. Like, he and Lando were sim racing, and he was like, okay, Papaya Rules, Lando, as they were going off in the sim. Like, it's become a huge meme, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? Have, like, proper rules of engagement. But
So
I don't even know what else to say.
this is a question to our fans. What is Papaya Rules? Realistically, please let us know in the comment section.
Or what should Papaya Rules be?
Yeah.
Even better. What
Or,
should
like,
Papaya Rules be?
knowing the weird papaya rules they currently have, where else in your life do papaya rules apply? Maybe it's an interaction with a coworker or negotiating your child out of a second dessert after dinner. I don't know. What are the papaya rules of your life? Let us know.
One thing that first time I think we've experienced this, all since we started our podcast, is we've never seen a driver receive a ban before for reaching 12 penalty points since we started this podcast. So for those that don't know, Kevin Magnussen is set for an F1 ban after reaching 12 penalty points on his super license following his Italian GP clash with Pierre Gasly. So my understanding, if after doing some little bit of research, thank you, Google, is he cannot race in Baku next, not this week, but the following week. So, and I said, would this mean that someone steps in for him? No, it will be 19 cars on the grid. So no bumper cars next week in Baku.
I mean, as it should, because he's been a human bumper car all season. So you deserve these penalty points, K-Mag. I understand that a lot of it was due to strategy, but there are rules for a reason. And the one race ban will be refreshing because let's see if he can accumulate 12 points by the next 7 races.
So so all 12 are cleared off of his record?
Right, yeah, all 12. So basically
it's not like
resets.
demerit points where it's just running and after you serve it, like 1 or 2 are taken off. Okay. I'm so sad he won't be in Baku though, because it's usually a pretty chaotic race. And I think
that first
adding
turn,
the kamikaze car into the mix could be some quality entertainment. Does anyone know who Netflix is following in Baku, or if they're at Baku? Because that would be pretty great for any content if he were there, and I'd be sad if they were following Haas. But honestly, you know what? He's got a pretty good attitude about it. He's like, good news, points in Monza, bad news, race ban on Azerbaijan next week. See you in Singapore.
They should give him like a beach chair in like the pit lane, just hanging out, sort of idea.
Put him in the castle.
Oh, that'd be sick.
Every time they come around the castle, it's just Magnussen.
Give him a Rapunzel wig too, and like let him throw his hair down.
He's just got the binoculars and he's just like looking the whole time. He's like, oh, that could have been me racing, but I got 12 points. This is why you don't get points, penalty points, kids. I don't know.
It actually would be hilarious if he was just to throw an absolute rager at the castle while the race was going.
With Kimi Räikkönen too.
Oh, that would be perfect.
Oh my gosh, bring him back. Hold on. I just want to add a little filter here for like an accurate representation. Okay, so I've got my cool guy sunglasses on and picture him like raving in the background. Just This is the vibe at the cat. And that's where we're at. What else? Oh, I can get like rainbow glasses on.
I was
Maybe
just
this
gonna
is
do
more
that.
ravey.
All right, so if anyone's in Baku, let us know what is the password to get into the Castle Rave for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Okay, we're having a little too much fun on this week's episode. Anything else that we should highlight?
I think we should highlight that Clary has a fetching new pair of goggles, apparently.
Oh, those are the party
Just gonna call
goggles.
that out. The party goggles,
Those
yeah.
are the ski goggles that he's gonna wear, popping the champagne bottles at the castle.
But on a serious note, I don't know. Do we have more to talk about?
I think we could end that on season 4, episode 28 of the F1 podcast. Thank you for listening to the Italian Grand Prix. Grazie mille. Anyways, I'm Jonathan. This is Andrew. This is Erica. Thanks so much for supporting us. As always, find all of our social media channels on Linktree, and we will see you next week as we preview the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.